Welcome to the Ebb and Glow podcast. I'm your host, Jenelle Tremblett, and I'm a firm believer that even when life doesn't go as planned, it is taking you exactly where you're meant to be. On this podcast, I'm here to help you finally release control of what you think you want and begin to just trust in the ebbs and flows of life. Each week, I will show you how to build that positive mindset, radiate with self-confidence, and cultivate an unshakable resilience. Let me prove to you that even when life ebbs, you will glow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 108 of the Ebb and Glow podcast. I'm your host, Jenelle, and today's episode is a solo episode with yours truly. And to be honest, I'm a little nervous to record this episode. I've put it off for a few days now, even though I've known what the topic was going to be about for probably the past week or so now. And yeah, I just kind of been procrastinating and I don't know, chalk it out to a little bit of self-sabotaging. And I think it's because this episode is going to be a little vulnerable. And there's also a part that I feel like I haven't journaled enough about even what I'm going to say on this episode. So for me, it's really the first time I'm putting words to how I'm feeling and allowing myself to even, quote unquote, go there. But I hope my vulnerability in this episode inspires you a little bit to maybe explore what feelings you're feeling and exploring your triggers, because where this episode idea really came to me is that the past couple of weeks I've had a few triggers, to say the least. And for me, when I have a trigger now, over the past couple of years, I was a lot more reactionary to things than I am now. So now if I have a trigger in my life that I react to things a little bit emotional, in the sense where it's just almost irrational emotional. If I have those triggers, I'm like, ooh, I need to explore what's there. There's obviously still some healing that needs to happen there. And it makes me really wonder and question and want to explore, like, what's deeper there? What's going on? And after thinking about that a bit and having those triggers that have happened lately, I was like, universe, you always happen for me, because thank you. You've given me a podcast episode to talk about. So here we are. And obviously I have the most clickbaity title I possibly could have had. And while, yes, the marketer in me wants to give you a decently clickbaity title, I mean, I couldn't have named this title more literal than I have named it. So I hope it caught your attention and brought you into this episode, because I feel that what I'll talk about in this episode and the reasons why I personally think I need to go to therapy, I feel that are probably reasons and topics that a lot of people experience, and maybe you'll see yourself in my own problems. Also, before I jump into it, if you do enjoy this style of an episode where I'm a little bit more vulnerable and kind of giving you really what's happening in my life lately, this reminds me of one of the first solo episodes I ever recorded. And the topic was really around, I forget what the title is. I'll have to go dig for it. But essentially, I recorded it during the Christmas season during the pandemic. And essentially, that Christmas was the only Christmas I've never went home. And for me, I only see my family twice, rarely 3 times a year. So that Christmas was really tough on me, where I did not go home that year. And I was kind of just like stuck alone in Toronto during a pandemic. And I recorded the episode just to talk about how I was feeling. And during the episode, I was like choking up a little bit. And so, yeah, so even though I've been recording podcasts for over 2 years now, I can already feel the anxiousness about the vulnerability that I know is going to be on this podcast episode. And it reminds me of how I felt when I recorded that solo episode a couple of years ago. So yeah, if you like this style, there's more of these in the archives for sure. So I guess the biggest question, I mean, the topic in itself is reasons why I think I need to go to therapy. So, I mean, I'm 29 years old, coming on 30, and I have never, ever been to therapy before. And I'm sure if you know anything about me or have followed me online, I'm sure that's probably surprising, because I'm definitely the type of person that's very into self-development and self-growth and solving things and healing things and talking about things. Obviously, I run a podcast in which I talk about my life on, but there's something about the idea of actually going to therapy that I have a big resistance around. And I don't know where it comes from. I mean, my family has never really went to therapy either, but they're definitely not against it. Like, I don't come from one of those families that say like, oh, like who needs to go to therapy? Like, why do you want to talk about your problems? I definitely don't have that type of family at all. So I feel that maybe my resistance is around, if I really think about it, I feel that I will spend a lot of time searching for the right therapist and kind of it's almost probably feels like dating, where you're kind of saying your same sob stories over and over again, trying to find the right therapist and just feeling exhausted. That's how I know I would feel. And I know that once I got the right therapist and felt comfortable around them, I think we could achieve a lot together and I could get through a lot. But I think I've never wanted, if I really think about it, I've never really have had the energy. The idea of finding the therapist is what exhausts me. It's not about talking about things and uncovering things. It's the idea of finding a good one. And for me, I think I worry about not really the money, but mostly the time it would take and the time I would quote unquote waste before I actually got started and got into the weeds of it all. So that's really why I haven't. And I'm probably the only person I know that has not gone to therapy. And that's not a flex at all. I want to, but like I said, I just have not had the energy to go searching for a therapist. Now, I will use this as an opportunity to plug my friend's company. I will post the link in the show notes. But essentially, my friend Sarah runs a therapy company that runs it as pay as you can or pay what you want. And she has a lot of psychotherapists that are linked to her company. And a couple of my friends have used their services before. But yeah, a lot of times the barrier to entry for people going to therapy is usually the money. I know for my friend, that was the biggest thing for her. She felt that she needed to go to therapy more, but she just couldn't justify the cost. And I mean, not spending that money was inevitably kind of hurting her in the long run, but she just couldn't justify it. So anyways, yeah, so she has a company that's pay what you want, pay what you can. And I think it ranges anywhere from $35 to $150 an hour. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to look it up again. But yeah, I really, after doing this episode, I'm sure that I will want to explore this a little bit more. And so if there's a company that I'm going to go to, it's definitely hers. Okay, let's get into the meat of the episode. So a couple of triggers that have come up for me lately, and it allowed me to make a list of all the reasons I need to go to therapy and all of the things that are coming up for me and have not been healed per se. There's a few of them. As I started writing them out, I was like, oh, there's probably just one or two like main ones. And as I started writing them out to kind of get my thoughts in order, I was like, oh, there's a lot. And oh, if I really allow myself to think about this, they all link together. And a therapist would have a field day with this. But I'm noticing all of the synchronicities and the common themes of them all. And you as a listener, let's see if you notice the themes as well. So the biggest one for me is, it's funny. I have a lot of friends. Like anyone who knows me that's listening to this, I have always had a big network. I have very much golden retriever energy, super social person. And I generally have a lot of friends or acquaintances, and I know a lot of people. If I go into a party, I will instantly come out knowing more people. If I'm on a date, like I've never really had bad dates because I'm such a social, extroverted person. So it's like I generally have fun because I like getting to know people. But where this is interesting is that even though I have a lot of friends and I know a lot of people, there's a very few people that I consider close friends, or very few people that I have actually allowed to get to know me. And there's only probably a handful of people in my life that I feel like actually knows me. And there's going to be people listening to this now that are going to be wondering, like, am I included in that list? Like, does she think that I'm close with her. I don't know. But what I've noticed about myself is that I have a tendency to keep people at arm's length. And I'm noticing it in myself a lot lately. And I personally feel that it's toxic as hell. And I'm noticing myself keeping people at arm's length as a way to almost not get close to people, therefore preventing myself from ever getting hurt by them. Does that make sense a little bit? It's like I almost don't trust people fully, or I don't trust their intentions. And therefore, it often takes me a long time to feel safe around someone. And even though I may hang out with them a lot and be around them a lot and generally consider them a really close friend, it takes me a long time to really allow someone to get to know me and allow myself to, I guess, feel safe around them. But yeah, it all kind of comes down to a feeling of I don't really trust that people have my best intentions at the forefront. And therefore, it allows me to essentially spiral and then get to a place where I essentially just think everyone hates me. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this that have felt the same, where you wake up some days and you're just like, does everyone hate me? This happens a lot to me around my birthday, where if I'm planning a party, maybe I'll just even do something low key because I'm almost afraid that no one will show up. And I almost feel like everyone's going to hate me like right before this like big day. So I know like where this is even leading even deeper is that my upcoming 30th birthday is a big, big milestone, I feel. And I'm planning on just going traveling by myself because I'm too nervous to try to have a party and people not show up. Anyways, it's messed up. As I'm saying this out loud, it sounds so ridiculous, but I'm telling you, like, that's genuinely how I feel. I have this very deep toxic pattern of not allowing people to get close to me. It's weird. So the next big one for me is hyper independence. And I used to pride myself on this. I mean, I still do to an extent where I've kind of anything I have in life or anything I've done, I've kind of paved my own path. And I feel that I've made it happen for myself. Of course, there's people that are opening doors for me. Of course, there's people supporting me throughout it. But ultimately, I feel like I got everywhere on my own. And again, I've prided myself on that. I thought that was a great quality of being independent. But I read somewhere recently that hyper independence is actually a trauma response. And when I read that, I was like, oh, shit. I was like, that's probably true. And if I really think about it, I have a feeling that it leads to not being able to feel like I can rely on people, being disappointed by so many people in the past, and having people close in my life that are kind of all talk, no walk. And that has led me to realize that the only person I can trust and rely on is myself. And so me not feeling like I can lean on anyone for anything and end up doing everything myself leads me down the road of super, super hyper independence to a toxic extent. And let me tell you that it does not fare well for my dating life whatsoever. And even in friendships, it leads me to build a lot of resentment around a lot of people in my life. And I feel like there's this big movement right now, and maybe it's just the general My For You page right now, but I feel like there's a movement around women in their 20s and early 30s that are trying to get more into their feminine a bit and basically like kind of soften your masculine energy a bit. And I mean, I was raised to be bold and be independent and be very like, just like figure it out on your own. So I generally come across with a lot of masculine energy. And lately I'm trying to lean into that little bit more like softer feminine side of me, which I know is there. But when it's linked to all of this hyper independence, it's really hard for me to sit back and relax and receive. I'm so used to and so much more comfortable being in the driver's seat that, again, it links back to like not trusting people, not allowing people in, like not trusting that they can take the lead. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't fare well for my dating life at all. Another big one for me that I'm noticing a lot, and again, you're going to see the common themes over and over and over again. I feel like these all link together, is that I tend to sway back and forth between avoidant behavior and anxious attachment behavior. So if you're familiar with attachment theory at all, you'll understand what I mean by this. Earlier in the year, I saw a lot of anxious attachment behavior in me. I was dating someone that just like was not a good fit for me, that brought up a lot of insecurities and old wounds for me. And thankfully that's over. And thankfully that did not last long, because it was just not good for my mental health at all. But after going through that experience, I definitely got myself to a lot more of a secure attachment place, which generally I feel that I land on. However, I'm noticing in myself lately that I'm switching back to a lot more avoidant attachment energy, which, I mean, if it's switching back between secure and avoidant and anxious, I mean, I guess you could chalk it up to disordered attachment at the end of the day. But I think, again, it comes back to not feeling safe. And I think instead of talking to someone, if one of my friends or someone I'm dating hurts me, or even family, instead of me talking about it and communicating it, I've noticed in myself that I tend to just avoid that person altogether until I feel that my emotions are sorted out and that I'm kind of like over the situation. And then I've noticed in myself that then I come back and kind of act as if everything is fine. And it pretty much is. I've almost like given myself, say, a week to just diffuse and kind of just like walk away from the situation. But again, it's not healthy. It's not healthy if I want to be able to build and grow friendships and relationships and connections with my family members if I'm being avoidant. But yeah, lately in myself, I've noticed a lot of avoidant tendencies, which, I mean, I've dated avoidant attachment people before and I hate it. I think it's one of the worst. I'd almost rather date someone that's anxious attachment. But it's so funny when you don't like that quality in someone else, or you wouldn't admire that quality in someone else, and then you're noticing it in yourself. Yeah, when you look in the mirror and notice that, it's not a great sight to see for me personally. But yeah, so all of that avoidant attachment behavior energy is something that I really want to dig deeper in and heal. And I don't know, just be a little bit more open and stop avoiding everything when I'm hurt, and know how to communicate something. But again, I think it all comes back to the not feeling safe, always keeping people at arm's length, because there are definitely people in my life that I feel comfortable communicating when they hurt me, or communicating when, say, I'm hurt. Maybe they didn't do anything, but I got triggered about something. But there's definitely a lot of people that I would rather just, even though I consider them a close friend, I would rather just kind of move on, pretend it didn't happen. And again, I think you could go years like that and build up a lot of toxicity and, again, resentment, and it's not serving anyone, in my opinion. The next one for me, and I want to remind you that I don't have the answers on why I'm feeling this way. I don't know the deeper root. I'm speculating a little bit because I recognize some patterns in myself and I know myself, but I don't know the deeper root of it. So this episode is not for me to explain why I feel this way and how I'm going to solve it and where it goes deeper, because I don't freaking know. This is why the episode is called Reasons Why I Should Go to Therapy, aka reasons why I should pay someone to help me dig further into this crap, because I don't think I can grow into the person that I want to grow into and achieve the things I want to and get to the next levels in life if I don't sort out these triggers. Like, they are not serving me at all. So the next one for me is I tend to have a little bit of workaholic tendencies. And as I've said a few times, there is a lot of common themes. And I think this one links to the avoidance behavior a little bit. So I find when I'm feeling a lot of emotions or feeling things just in general, I tend to busy myself with work a lot and busy myself so much that I don't have literally the time to dig and go deeper and question why I'm feeling a certain way, because anyone listening to this or anyone who knows me has definitely felt this way, and I've felt this way many, many, many times in my life. But when you're so busy and you have a lot of emotions built up and a lot of crap built up, but you're looking at your schedule, your work schedule, what you need to achieve, maybe your social calendar, and you're like, I genuinely don't have the time in my calendar to even explore these deeper, darker feelings, because I know it's just going to open up a tidal wave of emotions. My friends, trust me, I am the queen of putting things away and compartmentalizing them and saying, I will deal with those emotions at a later date, but it's not going to be today. And if any of you are a Real Housewives fan, think of like Erica Jane energy, where she is stone cold and then later on, it all just comes out. That's kind of how my life operates. And I think that's how you lead yourself into a heart attack. I hope it doesn't get that way. I don't think my troubles and my triggers lately are that big. I mean, I'm getting on a podcast and talking about them, so at least I'm having some sort of verbal diary to get them out. So that's a plus. But yeah, I notice in myself times where I'm busying myself with work, because yeah, there's definitely times where I do have a lot on my plate. My schedule is really full, but the times and the weeks that I'm just adding more and more and more and more to my plate, I need to recognize in myself that, ooh, there's something you're avoiding there. What is it? And stop working so much, because it's not going to serve you. The extra work is not going to serve you. Getting through these emotions, getting through these feelings would serve you a lot better. And the last one for me in terms of triggers and in terms of topics that I really need to call up a therapist and start paying them a sweet hourly rate is I've recognized in myself lately that I have a big loyalty complex. I have very high expectations of friends, especially. It's funny, I don't have a lot of high expectations for when I'm dating someone, but friends of mine, I have a big loyalty complex around it. And I don't know, loyalty is a big value of mine. So I don't want to get rid of that complex fully. There's definitely a level of the value that I always want to have. But I think where it becomes toxic is that sometimes I expect from my friends what I would do for them, even though they don't deserve to be put on that high of a pedestal of expectations. And I mean, I've said it here on a podcast before. I have social media posts specifically quoting me saying this, where I say expectations equal disappointments. But that doesn't mean I've learned that lesson completely. I still have high expectations. And yeah, I've noticed there's been a few instances lately in terms of friends where expecting my friends to have loyalty around business with me when they just have different views on that part of their life. And I just I don't know, I'm butting heads with them a lot because we definitely don't see certain situations the same. But where I'm struggling is the quick reactionary me immediately wants to go, well, if we don't have the same values and we don't think the same about this, I don't understand why we're even friends. And that's a little childish. I've had a week or so to think about this, and I think that's short-sighted and childish, in my opinion, a little juvenile. But there's still a part of me that does value loyalty a lot, but I'm wondering, and I'm still learning, can I get loyalty with friends in different ways and still have that value box checked per se, but maybe not expect them to give me the loyalty in the ways that they never ever plan to, because that's not how they see the world. You know what I mean? And I feel like I'm talking in circles a little bit, but this situation in particular was all around kind of the question, is business personal? Would you do business with friends? And I have some really close friends in my life that their stance on that is they do not like mixing business with friends at all. And for me, I take that very personally, where I see it as, if you really want to be taken care of in business, do business with your friends, because those are the people that are going to break their back making sure you get everything you want. Whereas someone who isn't a friend, it's going to feel a little bit more transactional. But the same people who feel the opposite would argue that argument the opposite way. They would say that it's going to get a lot more messier with friends, and that's a lot more professional when someone is a little bit more transactional, and blah, 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 blah. So that's a big one that I'm trying to decide. If friends like that don't agree with that value of life as me, does that mean they don't have loyalty for me? Or is there other ways that they can have loyalty in our friendship? I don't have the answer yet. I'm still figuring out where I stand on this and debating how hurt I want to be by this and what I will allow myself to get over and what is a bit of a deal breaker for me. I don't have this decided yet. So I'm still kind of in the weeds of it. So maybe in future episodes, I'll have a bit more of a stance. But yeah, so overall, I think I have a loyalty complex, especially in friends, and my expectations are a little too high, I've noticed. But at what point do you expect unconditional loyalty and unconditional higher expectations of friends? Because if you don't, it begs the question, are they a close friend? Are they a best friend? Are they someone that's your ride or die? Or are they just a friend in a group? Because what distinguishes closer friends and ride or dies from kind of everyday friends or everyday people you know? What distinguishes it? Is it loyalty? Is it that ride or die behavior? Is it that unconditionalist? What is it? And is it different for every single person? That's what I'm exploring in myself. And I mean, the first issue of mine that I spoke about in this episode is my lack of ability to allow people to get closer to me. So I think the question I have to ask myself is, what values and what examples of friendship do I consider to be almost like a higher caliber friend or a higher caliber connection or relationship? Like what do they do and how is the connection? And you know what I mean? And maybe once I figure out internally myself kind of what that, I hate to use the word hierarchy, but what those like criteria are, maybe then I can answer the question to myself, like, as this person exudes those traits or those values, me as Jenelle feels safer to let that person in. Maybe that's where all the muddiness comes from right now, is that I don't even know, I can't even pinpoint what I value in someone that I want to be close to me. What traits and what experiences and what level of connection and what do I expect of them? And if they're not meeting those expectations, is that when I feel unsafe? Or do I just have something so deep rooted of not feeling safe, not trusting people that I don't even know like how to put a criteria around it? Because I'm just not going to let anyone in. And I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot. And I really hope that maybe this episode will get heard by someone that's a psychotherapist or even someone that like is a marriage and family counselor, that kind of thing, that can listen to this and listen to me try to put words to how I'm feeling, and maybe they can easily be like, yeah, that's probably what's happened, or that's why you feel that way. Because I love when someone points out the causes and the root issues, because if I don't understand the root issues, then I don't know how I got here, and I don't know how to backtrack and heal those deep rooted issues, you know? So that's what I have to say about all of that. I feel like this is a bit of a shorter episode than normal, but it's good. I kind of wanted something just short and sweet and almost like a dump of like, hey, these are my issues. These are my recent triggers. I really should talk to someone because these are triggers that are starting to become patterns. And it's really affecting the relationships in my life and affecting just all areas of my life. And I'm not the type of person that allows that stuff to be affected for too long because I know how quickly things can deteriorate. So kind of want to nip it in the bud and solve it and fix it right away because that's the type of person I am. But yeah, as I'm saying it out loud, there definitely is some themes, but I still don't understand the root cause. So this is kind of your permission if you still need it or your inspiration that if you're seeing patterns in yourself of reactions and triggers, then maybe it is time to go talk to someone and dig deeper into it because you don't want to be that friend or family member or that partner that is going through the same patterns of reacting to the same stuff when ultimately everyone around you cares for you so deeply and wants to see the best for you. And if you, I'm preaching to myself. Let me preface this. If I have everyone at arm's length and never let anyone in and never trust anyone and always feel like everyone's out to get me, that seems like a pretty sad life to live, in my opinion. It doesn't seem like the rich life that I so deeply want for the rest of my life. And so if I want said thing, but my actions are not adding up to that, then again, that's kind of all talk, no walk, the same qualities that I don't like in people. So there you have it. For anyone listening, if you are kind of tiptoeing back and forth, debating whether or not you should maybe call a therapist or set up and start exploring those options, I mean, take it from me. I seriously need to do this. And the first step for me is acknowledging and putting this out on the internet and YouTube and Spotify and everywhere for anyone who wants to listen to it can listen to it. And I hope that you recognize the vulnerability in me talking about all of this. And it's definitely still raw for me, for sure. And I hope maybe in 6 to 8 months when I listen back to this, I laugh and say, oh my God, those triggers were so funny. Those triggers were so childish. I can't believe that's how I reacted. Because at that point, I hope I would be healed from that. But if I don't take the steps today to start doing that, then I will never get to where I want to get to then. So all that being said, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have anyone and everyone listening to this. And I always hope that you feel inspired by something that I've said that you can take into your everyday life and make the changes that you need to make to grow and succeed in your personal life. If there's anything in this episode that you've gotten value from, share this with a friend and hopefully they can get value from it too. So with that being said, wherever you are today, I hope you have an amazing day and I will see you here back next week. Okay, bye. Did you know that I'm not only a podcast host, but in my full-time career, I am a Toronto-based real estate agent. In 2021, I closed 100 deals. Yes, you heard that correctly, 100. So if you or someone you know is a busy professional looking to get into the Toronto real estate market and looking to work with a realtor who values your time, make sure to reach out to me and let's get connected. And in the meantime, we'll see you here back next week.